Good morning, students. Welcome back. I think this is going to be our final chapter for this sleeve bearing project. I'm going to zoom in down onto the title block, and we are going to use this note command. I'm going to click on note, place a title box, and I'm going to call this project bearing, and I'm going to use all capital letters, bearing sleeve. Notice that I used the word bearing first, sleeve second. In all of our file drawing title naming, not necessarily software file names, but in our drawing names, we always want to progress from the most generic to the most specific portion of the name. So the fact that it's a sleeve is a subcategory of bearing. Notice there's things called ball bearings, thrust bearings, needle bearings. They would all be titled bearing needle, bearing ball, in that order. I also here want to change my text size and make it larger. I'm going to make mine 5 millimeters. If I double click on text, I bring back in the options bar, and I guess I'm going to adjust it with my font, so I'll try a 16 font. That looks reasonable. The next thing I need to make sure is that this scale is correct, and it is for my two main views. I don't care about the weight of the part. Sometimes that's of value. My revision A is automatically populated according to this revision table, which is really nice. And so I need to put my initials and a date in here for drawing. So I'm going to use the text command. Place a box into place, and I'm in RSG. I want this to be a much smaller font so that it actually fits into the text box. Come back and double check that value, and it doesn't seem to take when I'm placing text in, so I need to put a date in here. I'm not going to use my command to put text in. I'm going to actually copy my RSG, and I'm going to copy it from a spot to a spot next to data, and then I just click into RSG and put in the new date, so 11/5/19. Looks a little big, so I'll select my text and try and make it smaller. It seems to work better that way, and I now have my initials and date in. I might want to slide that around a little bit so it just looks a little neater. I need to populate some information over here. I'm going to continue to use the annotate note. I'm going to put a material callout in here, and we selected a bronze from our Solidworks menu, but specifically we're going to say that we've used the Society of Automotive Engineers C93700 bronze material. I'd suggest you might want to look that up. It's helpful to understand where all that information comes from. And under my comments, I'm going to put a generic bronze. So then there's a tolerance block. And this tolerance block refers to all of the dimensions that are on the face of the drawing. Notice in our holes where we really care about the tolerance, we specifically right here at the dimension said this diameter must be less than 60.25 or greater than 60.00. For the dimensions that have less precision, there is no tolerance associated with those here on the face of the drawing. So wherever there is a dimension that doesn't have a reference on the face of the drawing, we're going to need one to add them here in a title block. So I'm going to use a note and say dimensions, for instance, here have a value of plus or minus 0.03, plus or minus 0.03, and that text is way too big, so I'll select it and make it about as small as I can, which is still pretty big, but I'm going to have to accept that. So that's a value that I want to place on my less precise dimensions. And just follow with me here for a minute. I'm going to double click back into my text, delete my plus or minus symbols because plus or minus is already sitting right there. And I'm going to progress down one more place, and let's see, we have a two decimal place dimension over here that doesn't have a tolerance associated with it. I'm going to change that to 1 decimal place of precision and come down to my tolerance block, copy this piece of text using Sketch, copy, and copy it down kind of one line. I want this tolerance value to be 0.005, and by the way, these are in millimeters. However, I want this text to say 0 place decimal or 1 place decimal. If I click on the text here, quite frankly, nothing really happens. Nothing selects. If I double click on it, or I guess right click on it, I can say Edit Sheet Format. And that's what I want to do. Notice my title block all turns blue. My drawing goes away. What I'm now editing is the title block itself. So I'm going to double click into this text and delete this 2 and put in 0 and come back in and take my 3 place and change it to 1 place decimal. And if you've been reading this, you notice it says on my drawing title block that decimals or dimensions are in inches, and they're not. Everything we have done is in millimeters, so we need to be careful and make sure we add that. And angular machine dimensions, we don't have a tolerance, so I'm going to double click into that and delete this bend thing. We don't have any bends in our part. And when we exit our title block, we're going to go back in and add an angular dimension in there. So I'll click out, look at the rest of my title block, and I think, actually I'm going to come down here. Yeah, I guess that's okay. As I finish, I can come up to the top right of my screen, click Exit, and now my entire part comes back. I've come into the title block and notice it now says 0 place decimal plus or minus 0.03 and 1 place decimal plus or minus 0.005. I'm going to click on one of those, again use my Sketch copy and just kind of copy it up to this row and put it into place. And on my angular precision or standard tolerance, I'm going to say plus or minus 0.5. So plus or minus 0.5 degrees. I believe that is going to complete our first project. I hope you have enjoyed the process. This is our last chapter, and this will complete the video series for our sleeve bearing. We will have more assignments in the future. I hope you've liked these videos, and I look forward to seeing you in a future project and future video.